Year 3, make sure you've got your paper and pencil ready for today's lesson. In the last video, we learnt about unit fractions, unit meaning 1, and non-unit fractions. And we also spoke about what the numerator and the denominator represented. And the learning objective for today's lesson is, can I identify whole fractions and partition the whole into fractional parts? So we looked at fractions that represented a part of a whole. Now we're going to find out which fractions represent the whole image itself. So I want you to start with counting in quarters until you reach one whole. So let's do that together, starting with 1 quarter. 1 quarter, say it out loud with me. 2 quarters. 3 quarters. And the last one, as you can see, all 4 parts are shaded. So the numerator is going to be 4, and my whole is still made up of 4 equal parts. So 4 quarters. As you can see, when 4 quarters of the shape is shaded, the whole shape is shaded. So 4 quarters is also equal to 1 whole. What do you notice about this fraction that represents a whole? Okay, here we're going to count down instead of counting up. Let's find out what fraction we need to count down in. We need to find out how many equal parts a whole is made up of. 2, 4, 6. So I know my denominator is going to be 6. Let's see how many parts are being considered. 2, 4, 6. All 6 parts are shaded. So 6 of my shape is shaded, or 1 whole. What do you notice about this fraction that represents a whole? Let's count down. 6, 6, 5, 6, 4, 6, 3, 6, 2, 6, and 1 6. So look at the 2 fractions that represent a whole and see what you can notice. Okay, your first activity. I want you to have a look at what I've shaded on the screen. Can you write a fraction to represent each of the shaded parts of each image shown, and then count forwards in fifths until you reach one whole? Once you've done that, play the video again and we'll do it together. Okay, so counting forwards in fifths, starting with 1/5. 1/5. 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and when we get to the bottom, we notice all 5 parts are shaded, so my numerator becomes a 5, and my whole has stayed the same because my whole is still divided into 5 equal parts. 5/5, which also represents 1 whole because the whole shape is shaded. What do you notice about this fraction? Okay, so as you've noticed in this fraction that represented a whole and the first 2 activities that we did, if you look carefully, all fractions that I've circled that represented a whole had a numerator and a denominator that were equal. Okay, so in this image, our whole is this, even though it has 2 different colors. This is our whole image. So I want you to have a go at completing these sentences by saying them out loud, or write them down if it helps you as well. A fraction of the counters are yellow, a fraction of the counters are red, and a fraction together are equal to 1 whole. Let's find out what the fraction is that represents the yellow counters. We first need to know how many parts a whole is made of. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So is my numerator going to be 10 or my denominator? My denominator, because it represents 1 whole. What fraction of the whole is yellow? 2, 4. So 4/10 of the image is yellow. Which fraction of the counters are red? You have to think, has my whole changed? No, the whole image is still made up of 10 parts. So the whole stays the same, the denominator stays the same. And what fraction shows the red counters? 2, 4, 6. So 6/10 represents the red counters. So 4/10 and 6/10 together are equal to 1 whole. Okay, so this is your activity now. I'm going to write it down on your paper, pause the video, and when you're ready, you can have a look at how we do it. It says each of these pictures shows 2 fractions that combine together. Those 2 fractions are represented with red and yellow. So you have to write 1 fraction to represent the red and 1 fraction to represent the yellow. Do that for all 3 and see which 2 fractions represent a whole. Okay, so let's do one of them together. Let's do the second one together. So we need to see what our denominator is going to be. We need to know how many equal parts a whole is made of. 1, 2, 3. Now, which fraction of the whole shows the yellow sections? Only one section is shaded yellow. So 1/3 is yellow. My whole hasn't changed because it's still made up of 3 parts. 2 parts out of the whole are red. So 2/3. 1/3 and 2/3 make 1 whole. Okay, your next activity. We have spoken about a rule when it comes to fractions that represent 1 whole. If you remember, let's maybe go back to this one. The last row represented 5/5, which also represented a whole. So a rule that we can make up for whole fractions is that the numerator and the denominator have to be equal. Now that you know that rule, can you have a go at completing these fractions to make them a whole? Write your answers on your piece of paper and then play the video again when you're ready. Okay, here's a problem-solving question for you. Teddy says, I have 1 pizza cut into 6 equal pieces. I have eaten 6/6 of the pizza. Does Teddy have any pizza left? Explain your answer. Make sure you explain your answer on your piece of paper as well for when you upload your work onto Tapestry. Okay, so let's talk about this question. You can see that there's a pizza that Teddy has that's cut into 6 equal pieces. We know that the denominator represents the number of parts that make up the whole. 6 parts make up the whole. It says, I have eaten 6/6 of the pizza. So how many parts of the pizza has Teddy eaten? All 6 parts. So does Teddy have any pizza left? Explain your answer. Okay, now we need to come to the part where we partition. We know that 2 fractions can make a whole. Can you draw a part-whole model to represent the fractions that make the whole? So here we have got 7 apples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can you partition your whole into 2 fractional parts? Okay, make sure you upload all your work on Tapestry and share it with us on Facebook and Instagram if you would like to. Well done, Year 3. Keep learning at home.